Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a very special episode of From the Fourth Line. My name's Emma, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Ella.
Hello.
Hello. We're here. This is our annual, 'cause it's turned into an annual thing. I don't think we kind of set out to do it as an annual thing,
No, but it
but
is
our
now.
annual, it is now because we've done it 3 years in a row. So I think once you do it for 3 years, it kind of
It's
becomes an
officially a
annual.
tradition.
It's officially an annual thing. Our
Oh my
annual World
God, we have a
Juniors,
Christmas tradition together.
our annual World
We're never
Juniors
beating the
tournament preview.
allegations.
Never. Yeah, our annual World Juniors tournament preview with the tournament when I always like these episodes going out on New Year's Day because I think turns out a lot of people like listening to them to get away from their family for like an hour.
It's just peace, quiet, and us chatting shit about children.
Um, but yeah, so we thought it would be awesome to sit here and discuss kind of again, once again, provide a preview to the tournament and things like that. So we're recording this before many rosters have been finalized. Team Canada is saying they're going to cut a goaltender still, which I think is stupid, but that's my opinion.
And your
I'm
opinions are always correct.
Yeah, but I believe Team USA hasn't finalized their roster. Like most, if not all, countries have yet to finalize their roster, so we're not necessarily going to go over every roster and give like a breakdown of each player and like because they can change because rosters can be essentially they can be changed up until the 25th. Like that's the deadline for them to be
Mm.
finalized, which seems fairly late considering this is when this episode is going out and we also like enjoy spending time with our family on Christmas. So we don't record this on the 25th. Shocker. I schedule this
Woo.
about 2 days in advance and it goes up and I check my phone at 10 a.m. and I put out the tweet because I don't know how to schedule tweets and I put out the tweet. And you also can't get the episode link until the episode actually goes live, but I put out the tweet
Um,
and I that's it. That's what I have to do. So you can tell how good we keep this going. But to jump right into it, I guess we can start with talking about the tournament overall. The tournament this year is being held in St. Paul, Minnesota, um, which is fun. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but yes, it's Minneapolis and St. Paul. They're twin cities. If I think if I have to say it's in Minneapolis and St. Paul because there will probably be people that'll get upset with me that'll be like, well, St. Paul isn't Minneapolis, even though they're referred to as like the twin cities. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So the two tournaments that they're being is Grand Casino Arena, which I keep forgetting it got renamed, and I'm like, where is Grand Casino Arena? It is the Excel Center, uh, Excel, but Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, which is the home of the Minnesota Wild and the Minnesota Frost, and also the 3M Arena at Marucci, in Minneapolis, which is the home of the Minnesota Golden Gophers men's ice hockey team. So, uh, some pretty big capacities. Like not that it matters. It doesn't matter. The capacity is whatever, but it is I just am looking at the Wikipedia page right now and the capacities are actually like pretty big. Like it's like 3M Arena's 10,000 people. Did not realize it was that big. But yes. So some qualified teams as well because this is I should say before we talk about the qualified teams this is the 50th iteration of this tournament of the World Juniors. It's the 50th anniversary of the World Juniors tournament, which is pretty monumental, just in the fact of
Mm.
like it's a significant date. You know, every year this tournament is significant for the players who play in it, um, but it's a significant year. It's the 50 years of the
Mm.
World Juniors, which is pretty cool. So the different groups. Group A, which is playing at Grand Casino Arena, um, consists of the United States, who won last year in Ottawa, Sweden, Slovakia, Switzerland, and Germany. And then Group B, which is playing at 3M Arena and at Marucci, is Finland, Czechia, Canada, Latvia, and Denmark. So I think like the but also to note, because usually there is just a note here. The organizer swapped Slovakia and Canada in the group alignments. This is probably not to make Group A like a bully fest on Switzerland and Germany. Sorry, could you imagine if there was like a tournament group, like a group that was United States, Sweden, Canada, and then Switzerland and Germany?
That would be so mean. That would be so
I
mean.
mean, it is really, it would be incredibly cruel to Switzerland and Germany, especially because like you're trying to avoid demotion, right?
Mm.
World Juniors, the bottom team gets demoted down to the Group A, or the Division One tournament. And then the winner of that tournament gets promoted. So last year Denmark won the Division One tournament. So this year they've been promoted as the 11th seeded team. And and Kazakhstan was relegated back to Division One after
Oh no.
having the worst record of the year before. So when it comes to like just the different rankings, the United States is looking to complete a three-peat for the World Juniors, which
Mm.
I believe will be the first time that they've won in a first time, not they won, but first time any country has won 3 years in a row. Um,
Mm.
Someone's gonna be like, actually, but, Canada did, but no, Canada. I'm actually looking at the list. No, sorry, I digress. Canada has done it.
Oh,
They've
so
done four
basically
years in a
USA
row.
just copying Canada, or they're
Yeah,
trying to
sorry,
copy
I'm looking
Canada.
at this now. Canada won. Canada, sorry, I'm wrong. I should like know better because I actually quite literally have the list of years that Canada has won like straight in front of me on this document. But United States has never, they've never won the tournament three times through
Mm.
3 years in a row. So they are looking to accomplish that for the first time, in completing the three-peat. Um, like Finland, is another country that is, they came second, looking to be up there. Sweden did not win a medal last year, which was disappointing. So for them, they're looking to medal. Like it's a very competitive field now. Czechia has made themselves a
Yeah.
solid and real contender, winning the bronze
Mm.
medal the year prior. And I think, the big story is on Canada to see if they can avoid missing out on a medal for 3 years in a
Yeah.
row, which would be the first time they've done that in the
It's like the
tournament's
opposite
history.
of a three-peat.
And yeah, they're looking to avoid they're looking to not repeat the same results of last year, which is losing in the quarterfinals to Czechia,
Mm.
which I don't think my sanity could handle that.
Not again.
I quite literally think I would lose my mind.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the first game again always is on Boxing Day. It's at 12 p.m. 12 oh no, I have to look at the schedule because I'm looking at two different things, and hold on. Give me the schedule. Sorry. I'm looking at like two different things. 12 p.m. Central, which is 1 p.m. Eastern. There we go. I was like looking at two different things. I was like, I don't know what time zone this
I
is
don't
in.
know what's happening.
12 p.m. Central, so which is 1 p.m. Eastern. When it is Slovakia and Sweden kicking off the tournament, and then the U.S. and Germany are um, are playing at 5 p.m. That is in Group A. Um, and so actually, no, I really need to get my act together. I'm looking at this all wrong. Finland and Denmark have the first game of the tournament at 2:30. No, they have the second. What day? Where am I?
I don't know.
I don't know where I am either.
I don't
Usually
know
I'm
where
much
you are
more
because
put.
this is such a different background. I don't know where you are. I'm
This is what happens.
scared.
I'm not sitting in the same spot, and so now everything is all.
Do you know how badly it threw me off when I joined the call and I'm like, that's not the chair.
I also like don't have my glasses on either, which I have
That's what
contacts
looks
in.
strange.
I have contacts in, but I don't have my glasses on. So I
Oh,
find
it's
that
fine.
sometimes I can't see the like
We have to have at
adjusting and
least
things.
one pair of glasses in between the two of us.
Yeah. But yeah, so then on day two, then Finland and Denmark will be kicking off games at 3M Arena, and Canada will play their first game against Czechia on December 26th at 7:30. So they are staggered starts, so you can catch all the action.
Yay!
You can catch all the action, but I guess we can go in order to preview each country. I guess we can go in order that they had finished the tournament in the year prior. So we are going to start off with the United States. Um, the US, the US won last year in Ottawa. Not that I'm salty about it or anything. Um,
No, why would you be?
yeah. Uh, but um, yeah, they are they're going to be an exciting team. They're going to be an exciting team to watch. They have a lot
Mm.
of really exciting prospects. I think, a lot of people have been critical of the US National Development Program this year, but they the the junior team that they have put together and the roster that they've put together, I think has pulled from the CHL more than in years past, which is great.
Mm.
Um, they don't they have some returning players. This is like when this roster, like when the roster first came out, the preliminary roster, I should say,
Mm.
I was like, I can't for some reason I thought that Teddy Stiga is like 20 now and is not World Juniors eligible anymore. Because of how much he like terrorized Team Canada last year, and like I felt like he terrorized like me personally throughout the tournament. He had a great
I
tournament
think he
last
did
year.
terrorize you personally.
I think he did. Um, and so I was like, oh, I like saw that he was on this preliminary roster. I was like, I thought he was older than that. Like, I don't know why I created the fact that he has played in two tournaments in my brain, but he is not. This is his second tournament. So he will be returning as well as Cole Hudson, because apparently there's more like there's I can't believe, like, just when we're like, hey, so we've got the Hughes brothers, USA Hockey has created like another group of the Hughes brothers called the Hudson brothers. And Cole Hudson,
Wow.
who plays for BU, will be returning to the tournament as well. Same with James Haggins, who was drafted seventh overall to Boston. Like, he fell considerably out of the top three that he was predicted to go in the draft.
Mm.
I think some of that was there was a lot of I think there's less of a spotlight on his season this year because he's already been drafted. I think, that draft eligible season is a huge spotlight on players, but this year there's less of a spotlight on him. So he will also be returning to the tournament. Same with Cole Eiserman. Like, just, yeah, terrorize me with a bunch of these, Boston guys. Like, Christ. Um, One of the non-returning players that I think will be interesting to watch this year, who weren't at the tournament last year. One of them was Will Horkoff, who was drafted in the first round, 24th overall by the Pittsburgh Penguins. He plays for the University of Michigan. He's having a great season there. He's also huge, like he's also tall. He's 6'5". He's weighs 201 pounds. And I think he's from what I've heard, because, you talk to people about stuff who watch him regularly, and
Yeah.
I've heard that he's having a really great season at the University of Michigan, and he's a really fun, exciting player to watch. So definitely one of those guys to keep your eyes out when it comes to that sort of deal. Like he, for me, is kind of, I don't want to be like the guy to watch, but like
Mm.
in my opinion, he's like one of those players that's just he's really fun to watch. So if you want to go out there, that is one of the guys. The Offside News has put together a players to watch article
Mm.
for this year's tournament, which you can go read now on the webs on offsidenewsco.com. So I'm like, I'll be referencing that a little bit when it comes to some players to watch that we're pulling based off of writers for the site who are going to be covering each team. So Team USA this year, like last year, is being covered by the ever lovely Katrina Liu, and she has Will Horkoff on here. I was going to talk about him anyways, and she's put him here. But in 20 games played for the University of Michigan, to give you some current stats as well, with that, he has 19 goals and 9 assists, which is not so numbers in the NCAA for like a goal scorer. Um,
Crazy work.
he's second in the NCAA in points, and is only 2 points behind fellow Team USA teammate Max Plant, who plays for the University of Minnesota Duluth. Um, so it's exciting. I think
Yeah.
Team USA is going to have, some really exciting skaters out there on the ice. I don't want to say I don't know so much about the goalies, but the goalies are Nick Kempf and Caleb Heel and Brady. Actually, no, Brady Noling was cut. So, but which they're all drafted guys, but I really think if I'm like saying, hey, for Team USA, if you want something to watch, watch the skaters. Like
Mm.
they're a really exciting group that they've put together and a roster that they've built. So yeah. With that being said, I would like be like, oh, let's give predictions for how like the tournament's gonna go. I don't want to give USA any more kudos than I have to. I'm sorry. Like me hyping up these guys, that was enough. Let's talk about um let's let's talk about let's talk about Finland. Um they came second in last year's tournament. They
Oh no, I couldn't mute
bless
in
you.
time.
Didn't
Thank you.
even mute yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
I tried. The sneeze
they came
snuck up on
second.
me.
Yeah. Um, they came second last year in the tournament, losing to the US in the gold medal game. But um, some players to watch for Team Finland. One of them who is not on their roster, I should say not to watch, but like is not on their roster due to a plethora of issues that he's been facing. Um, uh, due to like just like wanting to is Oscar Hemming, who wanted was drafted in the import draft by the Kitchener Rangers, and they signed him, and then it turns out he couldn't play because of a conflict with his Finnish team. And then he tried to go play in the BCHL, and they were like, no. And then he was like, oh, maybe he'll go NCAA, and maybe he's going to play for Boston College now. But it's a
Mm.
whole mismatch. And because of that, he's been left off of Finland's roster due to that. And um, another guy who's been left off their roster that would be an early blow to just the fact that it would help strengthen their roster this this tournament is Consta Helinas, who was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres and is a Buffalo Sabres prospect and is currently playing for their AHL affiliate. Um, he was not released by the Buffalo Sabres. He could have he was probably Finland's most important skater on if he was on that roster and had the potential to be one of the best of the tournament. So it'll be it'll be interesting. They are never a team that is a very like showcasey roster. We just talked about Team USA with some big names, and when we get to Team Canada, it'll be the same thing about these big guys. Team Sweden this season will probably be about the same with some draft eligible players,
Mm.
but Finland has been they've put together a good solid overall package every year. So it kind of makes when it comes to talking about standout standout players, a little bit more of like, trust me, this guy is good sort of deal. And one of those players is Emil Hemming, who is currently playing for the Barrie Colts. He was drafted by the Dallas Stars, 29th overall. He, he's a big body and has put up 28 points in 17 games for Barrie. Um,
Mm.
he comes to the tournament with experience as well, multiple junior events for Team Finland, and past World Junior Championships. He's such a fun kid to watch, as
Mm.
well. So that's really exciting. Also, shout out to Jade Surdy, who is covering Team Finland. Also pointed out Julius Miettinen, who is returning to the tournament for the second year in a row, currently playing for the Everett Silvertips, which that is always a good program there in the WHL. They
Mm.
always are a very good team. He's put up 18 goals and 24 assists in 27 games with the Silvertips. He was drafted 40th overall by the Seattle Kraken. He's expected to step up his role this year and play a bigger role in the tournament for Team Finland. So hopefully that can continue. Um, Moving down the list, I'm just going to start speed rolling through these. We have Czechia, who, for the second year in a row, um, made their way into a chance to compete for a medal this year, getting one, um, yeah, coming third and winning the bronze medal match against Sweden. They once again met Canada in the quarterfinals, won that game, which was big to do in Canada. Like last year, the tournament was in Ottawa, and that's a huge win because of
Mm.
the crowd that is there, right? Obviously, when it comes to the fact of like you're in Ottawa, it's and the success Canada found in Ottawa in the past in the tournament, but yeah, Czechia is another one of those teams in Europe I find that is on the national level and in international competitions have been putting together really solid rosters that they have sort of become a lot of dark horses for people, or a lot of dark horse picks when it comes to like, you look at world
Mm.
championships and you look at world juniors, which I think they're starting to lose that, because I think people like, they're actually a good program. Internationally, they've had success. I know they won a world championship, what, 2 years ago now? Um,
Mm.
was it David Camp was on that roster, and
David.
David Camp was on that roster, but he won what, the world championship, was it 2 years ago now? But they've,
Mm.
put improved performances through World Juniors. So I think, they can kind of are starting to, I don't want to say have, broken into that top four group of Canada, Sweden, USA and Finland, but definitely are on that peripheral of being like, hey guys, like I can hang out here too, which
Mm.
they haven't always been able to do in the past. And I think, you're now seeing more Czech players in the NHL, and that's kind of helping to, I think, maybe a little bit more respect to the program and to
Mm.
the players as a whole. When it comes to standout players on their roster, um, because, that's also something to think about. Um, when it comes to standout players on their roster, um,
Mm.
sorry, I have like 7 tabs open. Um, one of them for me, sorry, it's just because I have like 7 tabs open, so now I'm like just trying to switch back and forth. One of them is Adam Bednack, which I should say. Yes. Um, he is currently playing in the OHL. Um, he's currently playing in the OHL. with the Brantford Bulldogs. So he's playing on a very good team in the OHL and against very good competition, as the OHL always tends to be. He's drafted by the Minnesota Wild, um, and he's he's a very he's a skilled defensive player, and I think
Mm.
um, he's one to battle along the boards, and is a very good solid centerman to make those offensive plays for Czechia and to spark that offense for them. And I'm he's one of those guys that's just like I say this about so many players that I like I'm like keep an eye on. Like all the like players to watch that you sort of talk about and you mention, it's they're all players that will make themselves known to you. Like they will
Mm.
watch, you know what I mean? Like not watch, but
Yeah.
like you'll watch a game and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, that guy." And then you'll be like, "Oh, I wonder who that guy is, whatever number, whatever." And then you like see the name on the back of sweater, you look up like who's wearing what number and you're like, "Oh wait, that's the guy I'm supposed to be paying attention to." Right? And they just
Mm.
they're they're there's so many good young players in this tournament as there is every single year. That's the whole point of this tournament, but
Yeah.
they're so good at what they do because of that. And like the ones that are really going to be the standout performers will will be standout performers.
Mm.
You'll notice them. That's the whole point of good players,
Oh, no way.
right?
Shocker.
Um, crazy. Another player that really who's been drafted as well as Radim Maturka. He's a defenseman, was drafted early in last year's draft by the Buffalo Sabres, and just again one of those. He's huge, but just like will be heavily relied on by Czechia in big moments in really defensive situations, whether that be on the penalty kill late in games when teams pull the goalie for the extra attacker, or just like late in games in high pressure moments, he will be relied upon heavily. And because of his ability to be a really strong shutdown defenseman, you'll notice him. Like, I don't know
Mm.
how else to say. Um, another there's, one of the draft eligible players that I think, you know, should be noted upon is Jacob Vanacek. He's the youngest player
Mm.
on the roster, so much more of a um definitely much more of a guy that I think you're going to see year after year um return to this tournament. He's 2026 draft eligible, but he is the youngest guy on Czechia's roster at only 17. He's 6'2", so he's a big guy. Currently is playing for the Tri-City Americans in the WHL, where he's put up 17 points in 27 games, which is, oh my God, websites are loading. I just want to say, I want to pull this up. Which is solid for I know it's maybe not the flashiest numbers, but because of what we've seen, but that's sixth in his team in scoring, and he's played considerably less games than some of the other guys on his roster, on his team. But again, one of those. But also as well, I think he's a high scoring defenseman as well. Like he's a defenseman,
Mm.
so 17 points for defenseman in the WHL. Like he's gaining experience in the WHL and playing for them and developing his game. And I think, it's going to be really exciting to watch him in this tournament this year. Watch the or like have him go through the rest of the season in the WHL and then watch him return to this tournament next year. And I think if you want to be one of those people that's like, I was on this guy early, when it comes to either NHL careers or just like tournaments, and because you can really get on guys early when it comes to the European squads. But when it comes to the draft or the NHL or whatever, if you want to get on a prospect early, I definitely think, start paying attention to Jacob Vanacek this year at the World Juniors. So that being said, next on my list, hold on, I gotta go back. I'm like switching back and forth between Sweden. Love Sweden. Sweden for me is
Love
a
Sweden.
very exciting team, a team this year, because of the fact that they have Ivar Stenberg, who is, potential, like has the potential this year with the way that he's playing. Um, has the way that he's like potential this way to like the way people talk about Gavin McKenna is if it's going to be like guaranteed that he is drafted first overall. But Ivar Stenberg is like one of those players that has the potential. He might like he's currently expected to be drafted second overall right now, that's ranked. But he could make that push depending on how this tournament goes, depending on how the rest of the season for him and Gavin McKenna go, that he could go first, which is exciting, which makes him exciting to watch in this tournament. He's a very exciting player to watch. He's putting up nutso points in the SHL for Lunda, um, which he's putting up some serious points as like a pre-NHL draft player, which in the SHL, which is a very low scoring league, as it is, to put up the points that he's been putting up this season for Lunda is really exciting and really impressive. And like the comparisons that they're making, and I can say this as someone who has, been to Sweden recently and like would turn on like Swedish like sports channels and just like watch the graphics to try and understand what they're talking about. They're making like comparisons to like previous top Swedish players. They're like comparing him to like the Sedins, and they're comparing him to like Gabe
Crazy.
Landeskog, and they're comparing like the comparisons that Stenberg is getting in Sweden is kind of nuts. So like definitely a very exciting young draft prospect to watch. Another one who is maybe a little bit an off the board pick because people are going to expect like Frondell, like of course he's going to be a guy to watch. Victor Eklund as well. Yes, yes. Um, Big Up York, yeah. I say, and people are gonna be like, well, Emma, of course you would say. I saw him play in person. I'm talking about Lucas Pettersson, who plays for Brynäs in the SHL. I watched him play in person when I was in Sweden. I saw Brynäs play Linköping. Um, Pettersson was a guy who stood out in a game, and it wasn't until I like was looking at the roster and I realized how young he was and the fact that he is going to the World Juniors, and he was standing out in a game that was full of like men. Like that's the thing. When these kids are playing in the SHL, they are playing against full grown like men. like
Yeah.
like Nicholas Backstrom was there. He's his cap like Pettersson's captain in the SHL is Nicholas Backstrom. Or like his like Nicholas Backstrom is there. So I think he stood out in this game, and I think he's going to also be a guy that is going to be a huge asset to Sweden. I think he's going to be one of those guys that people are going to maybe not think about as being like the big name of the tournament for Sweden, but I do think he's worth, paying attention to on the ice. Um, Same goes for Felix Okris, another guy I got to watch play in person, which is really exciting. If we want to, because we're a Leafs podcast at the end of the day, if we want to talk about Toronto prospects, Victor Johansson is on this roster as well. So definitely some really exciting names to watch here. Um, there is yeah, Big O Bjork is another one of a 2026 draft prospect who is, sort of leading this team as well. There are 17 NHL draft picks on this roster, which is a fairly big number for teams not Team USA or Team Canada, and two very highly regarded draft eligibles. And they're I think they're a little bit bigger in size than they have been in previous years, which will help them play a little bit more of a defensively responsible game. They'll just have that extra
Mm.
length to work with, and a little bit of a bigger body, which will help, potentially against more physical teams that Team USA and Team Canada always tend to be. Not to like play into hockey stereotypes, but I'll play into hockey stereotypes a little bit. Um, Now going to the fifth ranked team on my list, which is Team Canada, so I can speak a little bit more for the heart because I am providing this coverage for me and Casey are coming back with our World Juniors coverage for Team Canada. But um yeah, Canada this year, I think they made the right decision. I think there's always going to be guys that people would argue should be on the roster. That's the same way every year. They unfortunately didn't get as many NHL players as they probably thought. You think about guys like Sam Dickinson, who is making himself invaluable to San Jose right now, and he's, not joining Team Canada, even though he was on the team like I'm sure Dale Hunter would love to have Sam Dickinson back on his roster, but um, you know, he probably would have been a name going into this NHL season who you thought would have been available for Team Canada, but now he's, become a fully fledged NHLer, which is good for him. But then you also think about the fact of like, oh, we could have had him. Another guy like that is Ben Kindle, who was,
Ben Kendall.
yeah, who was, really making himself a name to be on this World Juniors roster. Has kind of come up very quickly through in playing and representing Team Canada at international events. Like he probably wasn't even a guy like last year, like if this time last year that we would have been thinking about as a potential for this roster this year, but he is well, I'm actually currently watching him play right now in Toronto in the NHL for the Pittsburgh
Yeah,
Penguins.
funny that.
He- he's not on the ice right now, but I have watched I am currently watching him play for the Pittsburgh Penguins um right now. So he would have been a name probably even a couple of months ago that you would have thrown out as a potential, but he has made himself invaluable to his NHL team, so he's not going. Another guy is Berkeley Catton, who suffered an injury, and Seattle is not releasing him, despite him be partially because of his injury, but also because they like don't want to risk him getting more injured, which
Hmm.
is fair. But
Yeah.
you also think about guys who are fully fledged NHLers who are still eligible for this tournament, who, you kind of would have in an ideal dream world scenario would have um, you know, been on this roster. You think about like Macklin Celebrini could have been named
Mm.
to Team Canada. Obviously, he's not because the San Jose Sharks need him and they're not going to let him go. But that is like when you talk about that's kind of a trade-off when it comes to Team Canada about the fact of like they produce so many of these really elite players, except then the problem is that these really elite players become NHLers at 18 and aren't available then to play in future World Junior Championships as long as they stay eligible. Matthew Schaefer, whose tournament was ended really quickly last year due to a broken collarbone, which basically essentially ended his season. He also
Mm.
is not going to be at playing for Team Canada again this year. He doesn't get a second chance in this tournament because he has made himself invaluable to the New York Islanders. He is in the NHL and he's an NHLer now. Um, and is, both him and Celebrini are both now Olympic like hopefuls, which
Yeah,
is kind right. Like they're both Olympic hopefuls. They also could go play in the World Juniors,
it's
which is
mental.
a little bit crazy to think about. But that's kind of like where the situation is. But however, when it comes to players on this roster, I'm not one of the standouts to me, and he's a standout to me, even though Team Canada has not made their goaltending decision official. He's kind of you can kind of just go and assume that he's going to be there. Um,
Mm.
One of the guys who is my standout, and an NHL player I hold close to my heart is Carter George, who is an LA Kings prospect, but currently plays in the OHL for the Owen Sound Attack. He is incredible to watch. He's so intelligent as a goaltender,
Mm.
and he's so like his intelligence that he has in net is incredible and impressive, and he's also so athletic and quick. But yeah, he was a standout in the tournament last year for Team Canada, despite their early exit. And
Mm.
he hopes, he now has more experience, both, just in playing games, but also now having a World Juniors under his belt. He went into that tournament as an 18-year-old and, was that goaltender, was the guy for Team Canada. And hopefully he does it again. And this time there'll be a better results there for them. Another standout for me, which I think a lot of people will be not shocked to, but like be like, oh, this guy's on the Carson Corrals, who is, if you don't pay attention to WHL, is maybe not a name you're familiar with, which I think this is a great time to watch this tournament and become more familiar with his name. Ultimate farm guy. Like there's a profile on him in the Athletic that's just all about his family farm. It's incredible. Um, but
Wow.
he strong defenseman, draft eligible in 2026. So another name of draft eligible players for you that's not Gavin McKenna, who I think, everyone will talk about till their faces fall off at this tournament. But if you want to pay attention to other 2026 draft eligible players, one of them on Team Canada for me is Carson Corrales, is a guy you should watch as a defenseman. Another a forward, if we want to give my forward pick of guys to watch, this is based on pre-tournament play. Brady Martin. He shot up the draft rankings when he was taken fifth overall by Nashville in the draft. He
Mm.
is as Southern Ontario farm boy as he comes. Every fact I learn about Brady Martin, and anytime he says anything, I'm like, oh my God, you are from Elmira. Like he's like so firm. It's incredible. It makes the like Landon Sim Mennonite chirp that much better because it's like you were right. Like yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one, Landon Sim. Hats off to you. But he currently plays for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound, the Sioux Greyhounds and Sault Ste. Marie, in the OHL, and he's put up the most points for Team Canada in pre-tournament, in not pre-tournament game, but like
Mm.
in pre-tournament games in London and Kitchener and Guelph. They also played as well. So he currently was on the top line with Martone and Misa and McKenna. They're kind of been swapping around with
Mm.
um, Misa joining the squad late, and but I think him with McKenna is a really fun dynamic because, and this is no lie, like anyone will say this, McKenna is a little bit smaller in stature, and Brady
Mm.
Martin is not, and Martin is a very physical player. So he is really able to create a really solid pairing with Gavin McKenna. And so I definitely think that he probably wasn't expected going into this tournament to be a big guy for Team Canada. I think, he was drafted very high, and that's very fair to be like make him a really exciting prospect to watch. But I do believe that he's going to be a very exciting player. And he's one of the also he's the best pregame routine ever. Two chocolate glazed donuts and a double double and a small double double from Tim Hortons. Crushes that pregame. Maybe not the best thing in
Yeah.
the world for you, but like if it works, it works. And I think now we're gonna have a lot of, depending on how he does this tournament and how Canada does this tournament, we might have a lot of, kids playing minor hockey who are asking their parents for like Tim Hortons donuts like pregame to crush and
Oh.
like because if it works for Brady Martin, it's gotta work for you. And I think, you know what? I love when guys have that. Like stuff like that is like partly why I grew up with Phil Kessel as my favorite player as a kid. So yeah,
Ew.
exciting. Exciting. Yeah, Michael Misa is another big name who was left off the roster last year, who was released by San Jose Sharks to join the roster this year. And I think it's great that he's there because him being left off last year was a huge shame. So,
Mm.
And I'm not going to talk about the coaching, even though I want to talk about Gardner McDougall being there. But yeah, can I mean we could probably spend a whole episode alone just on Team Canada's roster, but some really exciting players there that I think each one is worth digging into, but we don't have the time. Slovakia, it came sixth last season. Last year season, Jesus Christ. Slovakia. Um Slovakia, sorry, I'm like trying to find things and it's not working. I closed a tab I shouldn't have. My computer was lagging it. Um, but Slovakia, it's a younger the team that they're putting forward in this year's tournament is younger
Mm.
um than it has. They've lost guys from '04 and '05 so that they've had in previous years, but it doesn't mean that, um they can't give the players that they brought this year experience. Like it's still a big experience to go to the World Juniors. They only have five returning players. Um, one of which is was there last year as a 17-year-old, which was huge. Um, but um, yeah, so some one of them to watch, who you should even just watch of the 2026 draft, is Luka Radivojek. He's already played at two World Juniors, which is great. And two World Juniors and his draft season is this year. Uh he went undrafted last year, but it was a draft that wasn't kinder to smaller players. Like I think that was my biggest smaller defenseman, which was my thing. But he's having a big good year at Boston College. And so, you know, potentially he's drafted this year with a good tournament performance, but even then, I think also as well, you can look at that being a potential for him to grow into chance to grow a stronger um a free agent signing after he's done at Boston College. But some other um Jan Chauvin is another player who's returning. Um, he's bigger at 6'3", LA King prospect, but should play, more physical than, like he should play bigger than 6'3", and he's already 6'3", which sounds really stupid, right? Like it's like, okay, he's not gonna be like 7 feet tall going down the ice, but you sometimes can see it with, bigger players that they just don't play like they're 6'3". Um, but he was drafted by the LA Kings in the second round, which is later than was expected. But he's been now playing in the OHL in the summer and has a little bit of a slower start, but um, in his first 8 game, like only having 1 point in his first 8 games, but he's starting to score a little bit more. And I think, for a guy who's now returning to the tournament, comes with a little bit more of that level of experience, a little bit more of that level of leadership, and plays a little bit of a bigger role in the tournament, which is always the thing, right? Like that's just how it rolls. Next, finishing seventh in last year's tournament is Latvia. Latvia, who, they had a huge game against a huge upset win against Team Canada last year, and I think that was a huge part of their tournament, um a huge part of their tournament last year, and a huge, boost to them. And as you it's hard to like as we start to move out of the medal hopefuls for this tournament. I mean, not to say there couldn't be a miracle, um but it is there's always that chance that Latvia could surprise themselves again. That's a growing program.
Yeah.
Um Eric Smateko is a big name that's kind of, was a huge name for Latvia last year at the tournament. So, they can look to, have another standout year where they're not, fighting against regulation there. Um, there's some goaltenders this year to the tournament, one of which is NHL drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. Um, he is currently the backup for the Newfoundland Regiment in the QMJHL,
Oh,
which
yay.
the team's not great. So,
Oh.
but it also feels like he hasn't quite found his footing yet, which hopefully, maybe this
Mm.
tournament can give it to him playing with fellow countrymen, which I think is always, it's always sometimes hard for European players who are playing in the CHL to kind of get settled, and World Juniors
Mm.
being back around, you know, players from their home country and being able to speak their language and things like that is um is important. Um, for me, another one, another player to have a look at, um, is Albert Smits, who is a New York consistent, like he's going to be a top 10 prospect right now. Um, projected top 10 guy, which only Zmangas Girgensson uh, has been drafted higher. Like he's been drafted, Zemgus Girgensson was drafted 12th, which is the highest draft like Latvian player.
Yes.
So, definitely a guy, to watch. Um, he's the only first rounder in team history, but he could go even higher than 14th. Um, he's solid defenseman, good in his own zone. Just like one of those defensemen who's like, he can kind of do it all, right? He's good in
Mm.
his own zone. He can hit guys, but great with the puck, which is kind of why he's been shooting up the draft boards. Um,
Mm.
but he's currently um, you know, a U19 defenseman, playing in a men's league, right? Which is always,
Mm.
big, and he's playing 20 minutes against men, which is like huge.
Mm.
So, you could see him clock big minutes in Minnesota in this tournament. Um, moving on from Latvia, we have Switzerland, um, which, they're still sort of, finding their footing as a program. And I'm not going to say like, not that they're a younger program because they're not, and they've created stars. Um, oh my God, my computer is like totally freezing. But
Oh.
um, some players to watch, there's some goaltenders as well. I think all they have Christian Kirsch, who is San Jose Sharks goaltender. Um, you know, he's not as standout as the Kitchener Rangers would have liked. He's, has some pretty good numbers there in
Mm.
the OHL, but he's playing behind a really strong decor in Kitchener. So, um, he is looking to improve. And again, not to say that the World Juniors can't also break, a guy's season in terms of totally, ripping away his confidence and things like that. But um, you could see him sort of split the net in the tournament um,
Mm.
this year uh, with uh, with Neuenschwander, not the other one. Um, but speaking of Jonah Neuenschwander, who is a 2027 draft pick, he is only 16 years old and is the 6 foot. He's 6'3", which is nuts. The winger
Oh.
is is getting ready to appear in his second World Juniors, which is crazy. For let alone to see a 16-year-old in the World Juniors, but to let us have
Mm.
that be his second World Juniors at 16. He has a later birthday, which is, part of that. Um, He's 16 points no, sorry, 6 points in 18 NL games this season. He's gained like he has the high end prospect status, such as like Nick, that like to same guys who have come out of Switzerland as Nico
Mm.
Hirscher and Kevin Fiala. Um, you know, like there's not really a whole lot of excitement that gets shown for
Mm.
players, past the upcoming draft. But 2027, like if you want to, I know I talked about, hey, if you want to get early on a guy, this is a guy you could get early on. Um, because he's, a 2027 draft guy. You could be like, hey, I was on this guy when he was 16 at the World Juniors. If that's
Yeah.
something you want to, but anytime you can see a 16-year-old at the World Juniors, it's really exciting. It's like the thing where you can always tell who's not yet drafted, like the draft eligible guys, because they have the cage still on, because they're not yet 18,
Mm.
so they can't do
Yeah.
the visor. So, New Schwander is, one of those guys with the cage, really noticeable. But I think, just one of the watch, exciting, fun,
Mm.
you know. But Lars Steiner, another 2026 draft prospect. He's currently playing. I've wrote about him as a player to watch in the queue this year. Um, sorry,
Okay.
I just need like an hour.
It's a lot to
Oh,
ask
this
for
is gonna.
these days.
Um, but yeah, Lars Steiner is another guy that I wrote about him like back at the start of the season, like before the season even started. He's only suited up for 15 games though in the queue due to an injury in October that's held him out um since. Uh, but um, he could be the most impressive, like important player. Um, because of the injury, his draft ranking has kind of slipped a little bit, unfortunately,
Mm.
but hopefully this tournament is one that can, bring him back up and sort of boost his draft stock, because it'll put his skills on an elevated platform. That's kind of the whole thing with World Juniors is it's not going to necessarily it doesn't make or break a guy's draft prospect in the way that you might think, but it is a really
Mm.
easy way for, those big names of the draft, big names of the tournament to, kind of get their name out there into among scouts and things like that that kind of elevate their draft visibility, I should say, more than their draft, draftability.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hope I'm making sense with that. I think I've hit a stage of delirium, as I always do with these previews. Um, we've got two more left. I just got to power through them. We've got
Yeah.
Germany, who finished ninth last year in the tournament and is looking to avoid relegation again. I think Germany is a blossoming program, especially at the senior side of things, as you have like guys like Leon Draisaitl and Tim Stützle, who are, you know, doing incredible things in the NHL. And I think that kind of always has a trickle down effect in these smaller programs of like when you have superstars in the NHL and you have that kind of global spotlight, not to say that these countries don't have superstars in their own domestic leagues, but it's kind of more of the
Mm.
global view of, or at least the North American view, I should say, of these European programs and these European hockey development and the way that they are able to produce players. But Germany is definitely one of them that is on the up and up again.
Mm.
And when it comes to Germany, this year at the World Juniors, I think hopefully for them they can kind of move out of that. Um, they can move out of that slump of being like just trying to escape
Mm.
relegation.
Yeah.
Um, but hopefully this year they can kind of move past that. So, um, and they've started to hit that. They've started, I should say, sorry, to hit that stride of not consistently being relegated. Um, one of the players that I think should watch is David Lewandowski, who plays for the who's an Edmonton Oilers prospect who plays for the Saskatoon Blades in the WHL, who is 18 years old. So, you could potentially see him back at this tournament again next year, which is always, something a little bit exciting to watch is when you have that next year. Lewandowski is putting up big numbers for the Blades. Um, but half this team is active in North America is um is a plus they can benefit from experience on smaller ice sizes, but also just the playing styles that go with it when you know Germany's in a division with Team USA, which is going to be a really tough game as always, but I think it's exciting to see the growth of a program, and you've seen it with Germany over the past few years, and hopefully it will continue to grow, um, as well as you see more players, reach the NHL, and or just even more players that end up, playing um in North America, whether that be in the OHL or the CHL or wherever, or even just for college programs in the NCAA. Another player to watch though is Maxime Schaefer. Currently plays for the Chicoutimi Saugines in the Q. 25 in 25 games, he's put up 12 goals and 11 assists. He is again another returnee to this tournament. He is one of the top scorers for the German last year, which helped them, not get relegated. But he's a fast guy, and on this smaller surface, speed kind of becomes really critical to be able to find that where you can, when the ice is you just have that less room. Um, and finally, Denmark. Um,
Yay.
yeah. Denmark this year, who was promoted uh, from Division One tournament after winning that tournament last year, replaces Kazakhstan. Um, you know, they definitely will have their work cut out for them in terms of
Oh yeah.
not just, getting promoted and getting relegated back down again, as, sometimes you see with 11th, um, that 11th ranked team, that promoted team, I should say. Um, you know, just because Canada is entering this tournament fifth does not make Group B easy. Group B is not easy. You have three big teams in Finland, Czechia, and Canada that are all trying to vie for medals that can all be serious medal contenders. And you have Latvia, which is a program on the rise, which they're just improving year after year. And they had a really big breakout performance last year that really, made everyone start paying attention to Latvia a little bit more on the international stage. And so it's hard, right? They have to just not you know, can't, they don't want to end up in that relegation round and have to kind of play to keep within the tournament. Like, that may be a chance of something that, they may have to go through when it comes to, exciting players to think about, to look at. Um, you know, they have um they have some strong shutdown defensemen. That's kind of the way the Danish style of game has come through, has been big shutdown defensemen. Um, Jesper Bank Olsen um, played a big role in Denmark's most recent um, U20 action in November. He's currently playing with Herlev's second division team in the Danish league, but has moved up to big club I should say, not club, big club. But anytime that can happen, um, you know it's great. He's not the biggest scorer, but that doesn't necessarily have to be sort of the deal.
Mm.
Um, the Danish team only has one NHL drafted player on this team, which is Florida Panthers prospect Mats Kongsback Klevo. He's 6'2" forward, plays with a lot of pace and a quick wrister, which is exciting. Again, on the smaller ice surfaces, having speed is good. Um, uh, and he was one of the main reasons why they were a they Denmark was able to win Division One last year and get promoted. The only problem is that he's been dealing with injuries this year, so you know hopefully that keeps him in the tournament, doesn't put anything too much at risk. Um, and I would say, and well, there's quite a few players on the Danish squad who are playing in North America in the CHL. So definitely always those names are something to keep in mind.
Mm.
But hopefully, Denmark doesn't get relegated because they have like their jerseys are kind of cool. Um, but yeah, with that being said, um, when it comes to like overall what some overall narratives, we kind of touched some of them on the top of the episode, and it's, can Canada, avoid another embarrassment?
Fingers crossed.
What will Team USA do in front of the um what will Team USA do um in front of a home crowd? This is the first time the tournament has been back in the US since 2018.
Mm.
Um when it was in Buffalo. And not that it means anything, but Canada won gold that year.
You know, makes you think.
Yeah. So, yeah, just, you know, something to keep in mind of the fact that like it's been a while since the tournament has been in the US. Some of that is because of COVID, and some of that is just because it alternates between being in Canada and not in being in Canada. So yeah. Um, I think with that being said, tournament kicks off on Boxing Day as it does every year. All of the
Whee!
games, if you're in Canada, will be able to be watched on TSN. I believe it's NHL Network in the US, which I'm better at researching than I was last year. I don't think I gave that last year. But all the games will be on TSN. Um, and yeah, enjoy the tournament. I really am hoping Canada does well. I think, that's going to be a big one. There's going to be some big rosters, though. Sweden looks really
Mm.
good this year. They're going to be in big contention. Um, so definitely something to, as the tournament kicks off, to definitely keep in mind. There's still some pre-tournament games that have yet to be played when we're recording this, so it's all really exciting things um going on. Uh, but happy holidays from
Happy
our family
holidays.
to yours. Um, and thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back after the holiday break with our regular scheduled things. I hope you enjoyed this fun little bonus episode as we always put out year after year. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll be back. And in the meantime, to switch it up, go Canada,
Go
go.
Canada, go.
Please, I can't do this
We are
again.
begging.